Hello, this is Reverend Don Lewis coming to you from beautiful Florida. And first, let me tell you the winner of last week's viewer's favorite question. And it was Choice of Jelly Roll from Ravenwolf. Congratulations, Ravenwolf. And today we start a new week of vlogs, and we're going to start with another question from Ravenwolf. And Ravenwolf writes with this question: what is the best way to say farewell to someone that you have been trying to help, but who refuses to accept your help? And is there one perfect way to do this, or many different ways? And most people who are on a spiritual path tend to like to help people. And particularly people who head groups often are doing so precisely because they do like to help people. And most of us who have headed groups for any length of time have met the kind of person Ravenwolf is asking about, the person who has large amounts of problems for which they are frequently asking for sympathy and or help, which never ever seem to get any better, no matter what anyone does. And I have known people who have received large amounts of aid that never helped their problem. I've known people who have had friends go out of their way to get jobs for them, apartments for them, even things like clothes and food for them, but nothing ever gets better because they manage to somehow sabotage or squander the things that they're getting, because they're not actually trying to make a change. Now, this is certainly not always the case. There are other people who will take just a little bit of help and dramatically change their situation. And there are still other people who need a lot of help, but will still dramatically change their situation because they'll actually do the work. But there are those who will not. And the kind of person that Ravenwolf is referencing is the one who somehow manages to always stay in that desperate situation, no matter what is done. I think one of the most dramatic examples of this that I can think of was a person who belonged to Holy City Temple back in the 90s. A lovely person. We enjoyed her company very much. And we all wanted to help her, and many, many people tried. One of the things that was done for her was that the high priestess of the temple actually managed to get this lady a job at the same place where her husband worked. Well, the lady came to work with her giant dog every day. I don't remember the breed of the dog, but it was one of those that was very, very large, and she would bring it to work despite the fact that the employers asked her not to do this. Well, naturally, she didn't keep the job very long. And there were other situations with the same person where people would try to help, but something would always go wrong, and usually it was something this person would unconsciously do. Now, certainly they thought they wanted help, but they would always manage to sabotage it. What would have actually helped this person was a great deal of shadow work, but that they could not seem to do. I can also think of examples from my more recent past where there were people who had tremendous potential and would have been wonderful assets to the work that I do if they could only address their issues. And no amount of help or advice would make that possible, even though it would seem like they were doing well. The exact same problems would recur again and again. And this comes from energetic blockage, and again, the best thing to do for it is shadow work, but only that person can do that. You can try to help them, but they have to be willing to address it, and sometimes people just will not do that shadow work. Perhaps it's too painful, perhaps they can't deal with the idea that they're not perfect as they are. For whatever reason, some people just won't do it. What do you do with those people? Is there a single way to say, well, you know, I can't help you anymore? Well, the truth is there's not. It's very individual and every situation is different. However, the thing that is the same is that eventually you must do it. People like this take a great deal of resources. They take a great deal of time. And sometimes they can collapse an entire organization simply because of the amount of time and resources they're taking out of it. And the time you spend trying to help them is time you cannot spend with the people who actually are doing the work. And so you have to be judicious and remember everyone involved, not just this one person that you'd really, really like to help. Because usually the spiritual person or the group leader or whomever we're speaking of really does want to help them. It just doesn't seem to be a possibility. What I have found helpful is an example that was shared with me from the author Caroline Myss. And as I recall, her advice was that the first time someone comes to you and they ask for help, you should be very sympathetic and you should try to help them. You should give them advice, you should give them support, you should do whatever you can to be helpful to them. If they come back to you with that very same problem again, then you should sit down with them, be sympathetic, and try to help them, and try to figure out why the things that you had talked with them before were not helpful. If you find that they come back to you a third time with the same problem, and you find that they have not applied the things that you're talking about, or anything else, then you probably should start thinking about saying, well, you know, I'm very sorry for your situation, I can't think of anything to help you. Because by the third time, if they're not at least trying to resolve it, they're not going to. And I will grant you that can be something that feels a little bit cold to a spiritual person who wants to help, but I think you'll find it's pretty accurate. Now, of course, as an individual, you can make exceptions to this. You can make excuses for it. You can choose to go right on helping that person indefinitely, and that's entirely up to you. But I think you'll find that there are some people who just won't take the help. So again, I would say give it several tries, but if you see that they're not actually helping themselves, or at least making the effort to do so, at that point you should probably not be continuing to try it either. And if later they come back to you and you see that they have made an effort to change, well, you might try again. But you have to ask yourself, how many times can you try? How much resources can you expend on this one person? How much time can you expend on this one person? And are they actually paying any attention? Are they actually trying to help their situation? And if your answer to that last question is no in the end, then you really need to kind of cut them loose. You can still be friendly with them, but you have to make a point where you do not expend large amounts of time and resources when they're not actually going to something positive. What is the best way to do that? Which is actually Ravenwolf's question. Again, there isn't any one way, but you must do it. Or, if you don't, you've simply condemned yourself to spending large amounts of time and resources on a futile situation. So, those would be my thoughts on the matter. I hope you find them helpful, and until next time, may you blessed be. Reverend Don, super omnibus of incantations and invocations for all occasions. Marianne Kay and I created this massive compendium of magic and artwork for you to use in any way that you would like. There are literally hundreds of spells and hundreds of illustrations, which can be mixed and matched and used in many different ways. Check it out now at witchghoulstore.com. Pray for peace. Pray for love. Pray for stability. Pray for the nation where you live. Pray for the world.